time-based platform as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it allows you to schedule different activities in a more efficient way. Plus, you can get real-time feedback. QoS is a huge buzzword. Quality statistics are becoming more and more prevalent in the types of hardware as well as service agreements that we're providing our customers. So having input on real-time information in terms of quality, but also event notification and diagnoses remotely allows us to maintain a higher level of quality with our customers. So this all boils down to two core products that Yealink offers in terms of device management. We have the YDMP, Yealink Device Management Platform, and then we have the YMCS, Yealink Management Cloud Service. We'll talk about what those are in detail in just a moment, but just want to make sure that you guys are aware there are two core products that Yealink has available for device management. So again, this was just a bottom line up front. Just wanted to set the stage about what we're going to talk about in more detail today. But we have a cloud or an on-premise play. So that's the difference really among a couple other things of YMCS and YDMP. We have a full range of products supported in terms of the Yealink endpoints from SIP to Teams to video. This allows us to unify our deployment and management procedure, allows remote provisioning, remote troubleshooting, moves, adds, and changes are a lot easier. Quality analytics provided in real time, gives us a much clearer picture of the endpoints and how they're functioning on the network, and allows us to provide API integration. We'll talk about all these things in more detail, but this is the context of the platforms and the reason why these types of platforms are provided, because these things are important for us when we're talking to our customers about the quality of service that we can provide them. All right, so I mentioned we got two forms of device management. One's cloud, one's on-premise. So here's a little bit more detail to distinguish or differentiate the two. So on the left, we have YMCS, Yealink Management Cloud Service. This is a cloud service running in a server owned and operated by Yealink. Okay. On the right, we have YDMP, Yealink Device Management Platform. This is an on-premise software. You buy a license and run this on an on-premise server. Okay. Those are the core differences between the two. With YMCS, because this is owned and operated by Yealink, there are multiple roles or levels of administration. So that could be from the manufacturer all the way on down to the enterprise or the end user. We, even as the distributor, have access to the YMCS as well. The model, in terms of how it's used and sold, is a little bit different than YDMP. It's charged by the time and the quantity, so the amount of usage and the amount of devices that ultimately are being managed through the cloud platform. It's an open network environment because it's on a third-party server. It's easy to use because all you got to do is be provided a username and password. With the YMCS, you also get RPS. If you've used RPS in the past and you have continued to use it, you may have noticed that there were some changes recently. Not that recently, but along the way, what RPS was changed into what YMCS is now. So RPS and YMCS are linked. They're on the same server. So on the YDMP side, as I mentioned, it's an on-premise based software. It's a single role based product, i.e. is for a single customer, whether that's a single large scale enterprise or a single service router. It's not essentially quote unquote multi-tenant, and I use multi-tenant loosely in that scenario, but it's again based for a single customer, we'll call it. Licensing is based upon, again, the amount of endpoints that you want to manage, but it's a single cost. You can grow and scale it as needed, but you have a single license that ultimately you manage and purchase. So with it being on-premise, you deploy it locally, you put it on your own server, you secure it your own way, you bring in your own DNS, you're responsible for all that fun stuff. But it also gives you that added level of security if that is what is required by the customer. You also are responsible for ongoing maintenance of not only the software, but the hardware. So there's pluses and minuses to both. And again, it's most likely going to be customer specific, customer specific to how we deploy and which one we use. Let's take a look at the key features between some of the two. So from just a general standpoint, let's talk about the batch deployment, or talk about this in the context of a batch deployment. The old way is, you're probably familiar with a batch configuration of multiple endpoints, in this scenario 1,000 T48Ss. We either have to set up our own server with our own DNS, and we either use that and provide and push all the user information through that server, or we do it manually, phone by phone. Then once you provide that information, the phone restarts, and then you get a configuration URL. Now with YDMP and YMCS, it's a lot more streamlined. You just create the configuration batch based upon the site, the customer, the model, T46, T48, whatnot. And then you connect the phone. It's much more streamlined. The configurations can be changed at any time or can be updated in real time. So the benefit then, as you can imagine, is it becomes a more efficient process to do batch deployments and large-scale deployments of phones. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 1,000 phones. It could just be 50, 25, 10, 100. But it provides you a much more efficient process in terms of a scaled deployment. Let's talk about diagnostics. So once you deploy the endpoint, now you have to manage it. So how do you do that? With Yealink device management, you can get real-time diagnostic information so that you can have quick identification of device issues through the platform. So diagnostic tools include packet capture, network detection, whether your internet service is up or down, system log exportation, so need a packet capture, configuration file export, device CPU memory stats, recording, and screenshots. So it's a pretty comprehensive list. As a service provider or a network admin, it's a pretty good list of information to leverage. But again, this is all remotely available, which is very, very nice. A couple screenshots of what the UI looks like just to give you a feel. You can see the IP, the extension, the model, device type. And then you can see the different tools that you can utilize based upon the scenario in which you're working with the device. So let's talk about moves, added, and changes, because I think really that's what this slide is all about. Factory resetting, restarting, and DND settings. Most likely, someone either leave or type of activity where you select a specific device to either reset or restart or put it on DND. Now, there's a bunch more scenarios that you can utilize or think of for this type of tool, but being able to remotely log in to a specific device and reset it either for troubleshooting or whatnot, rebooting, or to put it on DND. Maybe someone left the office, didn't do that. You can do this all remotely now. And you'll notice too with the DND settings, reset to factory, and device reboot, it's also timing based. So that's one thing I just want to point out too, is you can see it's listed at once or timing. You can specify a particular time for the phone to do what you're trying to get it to do. Which leads perfectly into the next slide, task management. So if you want to schedule a specific task at a specific time, such as a firmware upgrade, or a total reboot reset, or a configuration update, and you want to do it at off hours, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, anytime where the endpoint's not being used and you know it's not going to be used, you can actually set a specific time and a specific task for the endpoint to execute that task. You can do this to scale for multiple units, or you can do it for single units. And then you'll get a report once it's executed, or if it's not. You'll see here that the different types of tasks that you can do are listed: configuration, firmware upgrade, reset the factory, reboot. But then you'll also get a failed record if it comes to that. If for whatever reason the phone doesn't reset, reboot, maybe this is what you're looking for it to say, hey, this thing isn't resetting. Well, that's an issue. You'll get a report of that as well. Call stats. Call stats are huge. A lot of the platforms out there are baking in call stats, as well as session border controller type products. Call stats are becoming very, very important. Not that they weren't before, but they're becoming more and more integrated, I should say. So as a part of the device management tool, you'll see real-time call quality metrics. You see jitter. You can see packet loss rate if you're experiencing that, delays. But then you can also record and monitor calls, which is something that's a little bit different than you might see on some third-party platforms or other manufacturers' platforms. If you have complaints or calls of issues that the customers experience, saying, hey, we're getting garbled calls or there's a delay, you just ask, hey, well, is this experienced by a particular extension, a particular group, queue? And then you can run a couple recordings, get some stats about jitter and packet loss, delay, etc., and then make a determination of what might be the issue, at least get a more robust understanding of what the issue is. So that if you need to go to your SIP trunk provider, your ISP, or maybe just yourself as the MSP and say, hey, look, something's not right. We got a loose cable. We got an ISP issue, what have you. This provides you that empirical data to make that determination. So it's a pretty comprehensive set of data that you can use. So alarm management. This is a pretty neat thing too. This is essentially event notification, but you can set up different types of alarms and then you can weight them. So you see, set up different alarm levels. So we have general, major, and severe. So you're going to weight based upon the impact of the event. Outage obviously is going to be severe. Jitter might be general. And then maybe if a phone were to deregister for whatever reason, somewhere in the middle, like a major event. But not only can you weight the event, you can also set what type of event. So that's poor call quality, low MOS score, registration failure, firmware upgrade failure, DNS resolution error, not registering or finding itself off of the network. And then you can tell the device management tool how you want to be notified. Email or just through the tool itself. And who's going to be the receiver? Is it going to be everybody? Is it just going to be the admin? So as you can see, it's pretty comprehensive how you can go about setting up this type of tool so that you can have that real-time monitor to get ahead of, hopefully, any issues that might happen. So that way, it's not a surprise and it's not an unhappy phone call from a customer. You can actually be ahead of, or at least be in real time with, issues as they happen. So I just talked about this a little bit in the context of it, but this is kind of to stretch out what I just mentioned. The old way of addressing issues and finding out about issues is been primarily by the customer. And at that point, it's potentially not good. If we can get ahead of these things, it's going to be a huge cost and time saver for us all. Keep everybody happy. Now this can all be done remotely. You can see what device is having issues, what type of issue it's having, and you can have the proper people notified that the issue is taking place. That way you can develop a course of action to alleviate or address whatever the issue might be. Yeah, it calls this a precaution alarm. Precaution alarm. Okay, so to kind of summarize what we just went through, take a look at some of the takeaways, the benefits, if you will. From an end user standpoint, if you're the admin at a finance company or even the reseller, we have a much easier time of management and deployment. Not only can we have a better time of deploying, we can have a better time of managing. It's much more efficient, convenient. Costs are also reduced through that ongoing efficiency of being able to remotely manage your assets. From a reseller standpoint or service provider standpoint, it creates or it can possibly lead to better customer engagement. Instead of always talking to your customer about bad things or negative experiences, perhaps we can cut down on the types of engagement where it's only negative, where all my calls are dropping, my phone's not registering, my whatever is happening. If you can reduce that amount of negativity, perhaps the engagement overall can just be better and more positive. Plus, it's a way to increase SLA and quality. So perhaps that would be a way to increase profit. If at the very least, it is a way to reduce overhead by reducing potentially the amount of truck rolls that are required to troubleshoot, perhaps the amount of personnel even to be on customer sites or overall supporting customers through service-related issues, which then ultimately could reduce the overall amount of tech support difficulty and frequency that you have to utilize your employees for. So perhaps your sales engineers, instead of being tied to tickets and customer complaints, can now be more proactive and maybe more of a sales engineer instead of a support engineer. Obviously, there's a multitude of ways that I think we can leverage this type of platform to make our overall operation, whether as an end user or reseller service provider, better. So let's talk about price, how this all works. So we're going to talk about YDMP. This is the device management platform. This is the on-premise single customer-based pricing. So for the licensing, it's sold in multiples of 10 with a minimum initial purchase amount of 100. So what does that mean in real life? You're going to buy 100 licenses, or you're going to buy a license or 10 licenses of 10 to get to 100 devices. That's what these numbers are, devices. And then that's your minimum. So you absolutely have to buy a license to support 100 devices. Then you grow or scale in increments of 10. So if you have 108 endpoints, then you buy 110 size license. Then there's a hiring spree and 20 more people come on board, then you buy 20 more. So once you cross that 100 endpoint threshold, then you can start buying in increments of 10, with each device's list price being at $4.90. Okay, so list price, you're going to buy $490 worth of endpoints, and then you're going to buy $49 worth of endpoints as you grow, if that's what you need to do to grow. For the reseller and internet telephony service provider, if you have multiple customers that want to use YDMP, we can group your orders together. If you have 4 or 5 customers that want this device management tool, you don't have to give us 4 or 5 POs. We can lump this all together on a single order for you. Okay. But the biggest takeaway here is, at the very least, you got to buy 100. And once you cross that threshold, you can grow in increments of 10. Okay. Okay, so YMCS, this is the cloud service that is owned and operated by Yealink, running in their servers. Okay. There are 3 levels, and those levels determine the feature set that you ultimately get. So there's an initial offering of the essential for under 1,000 devices that is free. Okay, so if you want to just go to the URL and sign up, which we'll assist you with, and you have less than 1,000 devices and you want a reduced feature set, that is, you want just the bare bones, you can do that for free. Once you grow beyond 1,000 devices, that's when we're going to have to start charging. And the amount that you're charged is ultimately determined by what type or level of YMCS you want. So there's the YMCS Essential. As you can see, this is what Essential provides you. You get the device list, so that you can see what models you have. You can do firmware and resource management, so firmware updates and things like that. Account management, so there, again, with YMCS, there's different levels. So you can have either users or admins, stuff like that. Order management, configuration, so RPS. Site management, different customers, multi-tenant, quote unquote. Timer tasks, say, hey, we're going to run a firmware update at 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. Running state, which is just a dashboard, real-time analytics, operation logs, and sub-accounts. If you look to the right, you can see what that costs. So YMCS Essential, less than 1,000 units, free. Once you get above 1,000 one, or once you get to 1,000 months, it's $490 per unit. Then we have YMCS Professional. You get all the essential features plus alarm management, call statistics, and diagnostics. So if that additional feature set is what you require, you want to get event notifications, QoS stats, and diagnostics, you want to go the YMCS Professional route. As you look to the right, you can see the cost of that. That's $990 per device. So you might ask, hey, what if I go with Essential for my 600 devices, and I'm happy with that, but all of a sudden I get a new customer, and there's a certain SLA and there's certain data that I want to have and have vision to. Can I upgrade my Essential access to Professional? The answer is yes. As soon as you cross that 1,000 device threshold on an Essential and you want to upgrade to Professional, just a one-time fee of $5 per unit. This is list. So there's reseller pricing. So again, you can start with Essential, you can grow with Essential, but if you need to leverage the feature set of Professional and increase, you can do that. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you make it work? How do you get it going? Well, first and foremost, we need some basic information. Okay, and you also need to determine what do you want to use. Do you want YDMP, single customer, on-premise server, managed by you or the customer, or do you want YMCS, Yealink owned and operated, Yealink hosted, portal-based, cloud-based, and then you determine ultimately the basics. Who's going to use it? Who's installing it? Which, if you're talking to us, we'll figure that out pretty quick. Where are they? What features they need? Whether we're talking about Essential or Professional. And how many endpoints? Because again, it could be pretty critical based upon the price that you ultimately pay. It could be nothing or it could be something. So if you're calling us about these platforms, you'll probably have all this in mind, but it's good just to remind you that there is a certain data set or information that we need to get this going. It's pretty quick to get you set up on the YMCS. It's all, again, portal-based. So we just need to identify the admin. That's why the point of contact is so important from the reseller standpoint, as well as the devices. If you go in the YDMP route, we use all this information to sell you a license. Okay, there's no portal. We don't just say, hey, here's a URL. With YDMP, we use all this information to sell you a license that then you'll have to install on a server. We do not do that. Yealink does not do that. That is the responsibility of you or your customer or both. Okay. All right, so let's talk roadmap for just a minute. YDMP and YMCS as it stands today will continue to be enhanced and evolve over time. So Q1 as it stands today, we got some new functions baked in. The USB device support is pretty cool. That's really your Zoom-based products, if you've seen those before. The Zoom room kits, where we have a USB camera and a wireless microphone and or a CP960 for that matter, all tied to a PC that allows you to integrate right into Zoom. So those devices, as well as the MVC devices, they're your Microsoft video conferencing devices, your MVC 300, 500, 800 for Teams. That's the new upgrade for Q1, so that's live today. As we go forward into Q2, more features and functions will be added. As you can see, here's going to be alarm statistics and additional optimization, along with automatic backups. So that if there's some sort of outage, you can at least have the real-time or last saved configuration information. Plus recording and screenshots. That'd be pretty cool too. You may have heard going forward, Yealink's going to continue to roll out new products. The W80B is currently being released. That's their new DECT phone. So that'll be supported over time, along with the new DECT headsets, or I'm sorry, handsets that come out. And then the CP930W, which is their wireless conference phone. Also, too, third-party phone support. So I'm sure most of you guys, or some of you at the very least, sell more than just Yealink, may have other manufacturers. And if you do, you can, after this update, monitor them. And then in Q3, there'll be more enhancements made to the stats reports. There'll be device mapping, so physical locations, where they are. Multi-factor authentication, additional layers of security. White labeling, so if you're a service provider, want to take advantage of that, not have it branded as Yealink, you can do that. And additional API support. So the takeaway here is there's going to be more features added over time. This isn't going to just be, hey, this is what it is forever. And that is that. So, not too bad. 6 minutes further than I wanted to go, but that's not too bad. So I saw a couple questions come in as I went along. I'll get to those in just a second. If that was all the information that you wanted, then I appreciate you joining us, taking the time out of your day to do so. We'll have this recording on our website, so you can access it and review it or share it with anyone else who may be interested in it. If you want a copy of the slide deck, email me. I'll give you my email as well here in just a second, or reach out to your sales rep. Marketing at 888-VoIP is always a good point of contact too, so we can get you that information. But again, if you're good with the information that you've received already, you got a jet. Thank you. We'll catch you in the next one. All right, let's turn to some questions. Let's see. All right, so I'm not doing a live demo today. A question came in, will I be showing a live demo? Not today. However, if you want to see a live demo, ask your sales rep. I'm more than happy to join them on a call and join you on a call to provide a live demo. We can go through the YMCS portal, give you an idea of what that looks like, go through the different tools you can leverage, and get a feel for what that looks like. Question, is the pricing that I mentioned before, is the pricing above 1,000 on all devices or from 1,001 and up? As soon as you get to 1,001, you are paying. So 1,000 and down. So it's not 999 and down, it's 1,000 and down. So once you cross the threshold to 1,001, you're paying. Another question, do you need to upgrade all devices to professional, or can you pick and choose? So from a device standpoint, an endpoint standpoint, it doesn't matter. It's just the platform. So you as the service provider, service integrator, reseller, what have you, you either go with essential or professional. Doesn't matter if you got 10 customers on it. It is, as the platform goes, essential or professional. So it's platform-based. So this is a question I can't answer, but I'll throw out the question anyway. What type of monitoring will be available for third-party endpoints? It's not fully baked yet, so I don't know, to be completely honest with you. I would think that it's going to be very similar. I don't know that it's going to be 100% everything that you can do with Yealink because of the different firmwares and things of that nature. But there's going to be, at the very least, a standard set of information that you would be able to see on hook, off hook, registered, not registered, jitter, packet loss, things like that. But I can't say explicitly, feature by feature just yet what type of monitoring will be available. But there will be a bit of parity between what Yealink has to offer versus third party, if not 100% the same. We'll find out as we get a little bit closer to that being released. So a question came in, we've been using RPS, but this is not the same as YMCS, or it doesn't include the same features of YMCS. So we just got to get you upgraded. I mentioned before, it's the same server, same portal. We just got to essentially turn you on for YMCS. So that's relatively simple. We just get you hooked up with our sales team and our tech team. We have a super admin here, a couple actually on the Yealink side for the YMCS that can go into your account and get you lit up for the YMCS if that's what you want to do. So I got your information here. If you're working with us today, I can just use that to look you up. Otherwise, send me your info and we can get you going. So, which leads perfectly into the next question. How do you sign up? Which we got to get you going. We're as the distributor, we work with Yealink to create the accounts for you. So my short answer is call your sales rep. If you don't have a sales rep, marketing at 888-VoIP. We'll get you squared away. But it's a pretty simple process. We just get the basic information. Who are you? Who's going to be your admin? You got any devices you want to spin up? That type of stuff. And then we'll create login credentials on the YMCS for you. So, question, how about the video analytics, or is this just for voice? So in terms of the video analytics, it's not, it's a lot of the same jitter, latency. If you got a SIP registration on a registered or deregistered, IP or no IP. With video, there's some different codecs that are used, so it depends on if you're using SIP versus H.323 or web for that matter. So it's going to be kind of based upon how you're connecting, but at the very least, you'll be able to see where it is in terms of like the site, the IP address. And if you're using SIP, is it registered or not registered? And if you are using SIP, you'll be able to see more of that voice-based statistics, MOS scoring, jitter, latency, packet loss, stuff like that. So the long answer is it depends on how you're using the video endpoint, but if you're using SIP, you'll have a more robust view of the traffic because, again, it's SIP, so we can see that. And with 323, it's a little bit different with how RTP works and all that, or TCP, I should say. But we can see the very, very basic network information. Hey, does this thing have an IP? Is it connecting? Is it not? Can I run a packet capture? You can do definitely a packet capture, which is big for H.323. So if it's not leaving the firewall, it's getting blocked at 1720, port 1720 or what have you, you'll be able to see that type of information. So it's pretty comprehensive, depending upon really how you're trying to connect. If you tried this, the question came in, I had to trial this in Q3 of last year, never really worked. Who can I reach out to? We will re-engage with you on this one. We'll get the sales team to look at your account. If you have one in the YMCS, see if there's any sort of problem. But again, it's just engage with us. We'll get our sales team and our tech team to look at the profile you have set up one. If you don't have one, we'll get you set up with one. But there's been some updates made some updates made to the YMCS since that time frame which you mentioned, which is Q3 of last year, so the summertime, fall. So perhaps that was the issue there. So question came in, can you manage features with YMCS even if it is provisioned by RingCentral Drive, etc.? So yes and no. So from a provisioning standpoint, that is going to be a no, because the phone is given the URL for which it will use to provision itself. And that URL, if it's coming from Jive or RingCentral or what have you, is a third party. It belongs to them, not Yealink. So that's one part. It's why, you know, the RPS is one thing, right? Remote provisioning is one thing, and that's going to stay with whatever that URL is tied to. However, if you wanted to get some basic statistics, or is this thing on the network, or run a packet capture, do some troubleshooting things, that will be available to you to manage the device. So it depends. Again, I hate to give a depends answer, but it kind of depends on what you're looking to do. From a provisioning standpoint, it's tied to wherever that URL is from. And that's the best I can answer that question. YMCS servers and security, a couple questions came up about all that. Those servers, I believe to the best of my knowledge, they're hosted in the US. I want to say it's Amazon, but I'm not 100% sure. But I get it. I especially in today's environment, totally get where these questions are coming from. From a security standpoint, who's hosting this, who has access to this, can, you know, they listen into my calls. I totally get it. Look, nothing on the network is ever safe 100%, ever. No matter if it's in the US, Europe, China, Asia, it doesn't matter. So I can't answer that with 100% certainty and say, yes, I promise you nothing bad will ever happen. But what I can tell you is Yealink has taken appropriate safeguards to make sure that your data, your information, your customer's information is secure. Okay, that much I can tell you. And so if you have additional concerns about who has access to this information, who can record what, where is this thing being run, let's just have a call with Yealink. We're happy to coordinate that. We're happy to provide your information to the appropriate people at Yealink if you want to speak with them about this information and say, hey, look, these are my concerns. These are my customers' concerns. Can you please provide additional information about X, Y, and Z security-based questions? So call stats, there's a couple questions. Can it stitch together call legs, or does it just present stats for a single leg? Like the setup and teardown, I'm thinking, is that what you're getting to? Kind of like a Wireshark almost? Yes, if that's what I'm understanding. You'll see the analytics to a degree. You're not going to get a full like Wireshark-based report, but what you'll get is a packet capture. Where is it going? You know, who are you trying to reach? You know, where's your host? Who are you trying to set up with? The basics, right? So, hey, I'm going to my router, then I'm going to this router, then I'm going to that router, then I'm going to this network, and I'm trying to connect with this endpoint. Or, hey, I got stopped here. So you'll get a basic packet capture that then you'll open up in Wireshark and be able to see some more detailed analytics that way. So your basic PCAP type of information. So here's another question. Are call analytics call recordings or statistical analysis only? So the answer is you can do call recordings separately where you just have a call recorded straight up. Hey, hello, this is XYZ company. Thank you for calling, blah, 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 blah. You have that recording to listen to, hey, is there jitter on here or whatever. And then there is call statistics analysis. There's no statistics analysis, it's just statistics. So, hey, our jitter rate was this, or we have latency of this, or that type of information. So it's not necessarily going to give you a ton of analysis, so to speak, but you can utilize the event tool as an analysis tool. So let's just say you set a threshold for MOS, for jitter, for latency. So if a phone call were to fall below that threshold, you can then use your alarm function to be notified that that event took place. So it's not AI analytics type of stuff, so to speak, but there are tools that you can leverage, like the alarm function, to kind of analyze the data as it's provided. Another question, I sent an email to Yealink for a sign up. Should I just call 888 to talk to my sales rep? Yeah, I'm biased, but yeah, I mean, we're here. We're going to pick up the phone when you call. So yes, at the very least, give us a shout. Like I said, we can talk to our admins that we have on a tech team, get you an account set up if you don't have one, and then take it from there. If there's additional things that we need from Yealink, more information or what have you, we can always pull them in. But we're their only platinum distributor, so we have a higher level of access to them and the tools that they provide. So we can certainly get you squared away or go and get you started pretty quick if you want to get signed up. Can you use both RPS and YMCS? Some devices on RPS and some devices on YMCS. Yeah, if you just want to utilize the YMCS as a provisioning server and just use the URL provided to you, then yeah, you don't necessarily have to use it as the device management tool. Although again, it's on the same server, so it's conjoined as one and the same. So if we get you signed up to have access to YMCS, you can utilize it, but we can get you signed up for just RPS if you'd like. We can just say, hey, look, this account is only for provisioning. We're not going to use it for YMCS. Here's a good question. After 3 years with the free version of YMCS, if the amount of devices isn't totaled to at least 1,000 devices, will it be billed? Yes. Yeah. So that's the rub. You get 3 years, and if you like it, then you got to pay for it. Is the 1,000 device the minimum, such as how the 100? Okay, so here's a good question. So there's a 1,000 device minimum for YMCS. Is that the same for YDMP? The answer is no. YMCS, the Yealink Management Cloud Portal, is owned and operated, hosted, and ran by Yealink. So that's why there's a higher threshold, because everything's already set up. Everything's just there. With YDMP, the Yealink Device Management Platform, that's just a software license. So you, as the integrator, service provider, are still going to have to find a server, DNS, or IP, however you do that, security, what have you. That is all going to have to be customized, so to speak, or set up by you or your customer, both of you. So that's why it's a lower threshold. It's only 100, because it's a single use or single customer type of platform. Whereas with YMCS, that's why I loosely call it multi-tenant. It's not to the definition, but it's multi-tenant in the sense that you could have 7 different customers on your single YMCS, right? So if I'm, Kyle's voice service provider, and my 12 customers that I'm up to 900 endpoints, I want to manage those, I can do that all through YMCS, and I can do that for free, because I have layers of access, and I can provide each of my 12 customers at least one admin credential so that they can see some information too. Whereas with YDMP, one of my 12 is going to get a device management tool, and they'll probably be the ones to manage that. So it's more of a CapEx versus OpEx type of thing, to put it in those terms. Question, Sangoma or Verizon IP phones compatible with the YMCS? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm thinking no, only because the specifics of firmware and how they interact with the particular providers, I don't know though 100%. So let me shelf that. We can ask Yealink about that. And my holdup is the firmware and how they're locked into those platforms. You can't take a Verizon branded T46 and run it on a 2600 hertz or NetSapiens platform. So that makes me think a little bit more about what it can do from a YMCS standpoint. So just a clarifying question, if I have 500 devices that I use just for provisioning and another 250 that I use for device management, am I free for 3 years? Yes. And so again, I just want to reiterate that with the YMCS, you're either going to use just RPS or you're going to use RPS and YMCS, and that's platform-based. So you're either going to have one or everything. So it's based upon the profile that we set up for you. We're either going to say, look, this guy's only using RPS and that's it. Or you're doing RPS and YMCS. Okay. So whether you only use RPS for a majority of your endpoints and YMCS for some of them, you're still set up for both. You're going to have access to both. And so all of those endpoints are going to count towards that 1,000 unit threshold because of the nature of the profile we're setting up for you as the reseller. So after the 3-year trial, are you being billed for how many devices actually are being used, or for 1,000? 1,000. That's just the format of the billing. Without getting too far down the rabbit hole, it's basically 1,000. Whether you got 300, 700, 500, 997. After that 3 years, you're paying at the 1,000 unit rate. Good questions, guys. This is good info. This is a tool that we're really excited about having, that I'm sure a lot of you have been asking and looking forward to having. The fact that Yealink has developed it and done a pretty good job of developing it is exciting. So good questions. I'm very excited that there's so many people interested in this. So yeah, absolutely reach out to us to learn more. Ask us to do a live demo. Get Yealink involved if you need to. This is a tool we recognize as being I'm going to be overzealous, but a game changer in some ways. So we want you to use it. So reach out, help us help you. So anywho, that takes us to right about 3 o'clock here in the east, at least, so almost the top of the hour. So we'll go ahead and shut it down. All these questions that you guys are asking and who's asking it, we keep a list of. This is all sent out to our sales team as well. So if there is a rep that you'd like to work with, or a team that you'd like to work with, reach out to them. But otherwise, this information will be shared with them as well, so they're at the very least aware that you guys were here. So we'll get that over to them. We'll get this recording and the slide deck up on our website at some point, maybe tomorrow, if not today. So you can go ahead and review this if you'd like. So with that, we'll shut it down. I appreciate everyone's time, the questions, the interests, everything. Very much appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you for being 888 VoIP customers. Thank you for taking time out of your day. My email, if you want to talk to me directly, is KO. You know what? Let me just do this. Let me just open up the slide. German last name, so it's no fun for anyone. That's me, Kyle, 888 VoIP. So K Ousler, OURSLER, at 888VoIP.com. That goes right to me. If you want to send me money, I'll give you my Venmo. No, I'm just joking. So we'll shut it down. Thank you again for your time today, everybody, and the questions. The engagement's been great, and for being an 888 VoIP customer. We'll let you go, get back to your day. We will catch you on the next webinar. Take care.